Older, it's off.
We're live here. We'll talk about that after. But yeah, guys, it's election day. It's going to be a crazy night. I'm sure you guys are excited for the night. The market is set to open up another 400 points after closing up about 420 points yesterday. Yesterday was just a back and forth day all day, but it ended up closing on a strong note, which I think we kind of talked about with people just kind of closing hedges that were already well into the money on them being short the market. And now I'm starting to wonder if that's too much of a narrative where, you know what I mean? Like, it seems like there's been like almost a 180 shift where now everyone's like, oh, market's going to rally no matter what. That Thomas Lee guy who comes on CNBC sometimes came on yesterday and basically said that no matter what, once the election's over, the stock market's going to rally, and it'll rally the most with Trump, because if Trump doesn't win, he thinks tech lags just due to regulations and increased taxes. So I don't know if that's maybe why tech has been acting weaker than the other sectors, is because people are just assuming that Biden's going to win. And even though they want to have their money invested in the market, they're looking at tech as just the sector that is going to come down the most. I don't really know. I'm trying to figure it all out. But the one thing that seems to not be known by anybody is who's going to actually win this election. The polls keep changing, but they're getting closer. And the one thing I heard that was kind of interesting, and I'm curious to hear your guys' take on this, was they're typically going to count the in-person votes first, and those are going to be the ones that start to get reported first. So when they start talking about the numbers, I'm pretty sure the first numbers that are going to come in are going to be Florida at around 7:30, and for the most part, it's going to first count the in-person votes. And, you know, the common theme here is that Republicans are more likely to vote in person, and the Democrats are the ones who sent in the early ballots. So it'll be interesting right off the bat if Biden has a lead without them counting the mail-in votes. This could be a runaway with him. And if not,
there's also, though, there's some states that have been counting the votes as they come in, and they're going to be able to report what they've got. So you're going to get a lot of reports from votes that were made early. Maybe not from the states you want to hear them from, but it'll probably give some indication of who's voting, which is what they're looking for too.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I guess the thing that people are going to really be looking out for is Trump is just going to declare victory if he shows that he's up at all in the polls. I think there's a lot of people that think that Trump might have some sort of legal troubles outside of, being the president. And if he doesn't win this election, those might come to fruition. I don't know what's true and what's not with that, but it's definitely going to be an interesting next 24 to 72 hours. There's no doubt about it. And looking at my watch list this morning, everything's up except BABA. I don't know if you guys saw, but they postponed that Ant IPO. So BABA was heavily invested in that new public company, Ant, and they were supposed to go public. And
did they say why they postponed it?
Not really seeing anything yet on that.
I know that they called Jack Ma in to talk to him, the Chinese, right before the IPO.
Yeah, actually, they didn't even postpone it. They suspended it. Let's see. Apparently, I'm just trying to see if there's anything specific that happened. But yeah, no, I don't see anything about that. But, other than that, it's a sea of green, kind of like yesterday. But yesterday was definitely all over the place day. I mean, the stock market kind of quickly evened itself out, and then there were a bunch of stocks that were in the red. All those big tech names continued to sell off, like Microsoft, Facebook, Apple. And I know, Dad, when we were just talking offline yesterday, you were kind of saying, keep your eye on Microsoft, because if tech is going to take the front seat again, it's going to be Microsoft that probably leads the way, just because they were the first one to come out with their earnings. I saw PayPal had their earnings yesterday, and it was a disappointment. I'm pretty sure they're selling off this morning.
Yeah, their outlook wasn't great, but their actual earnings were fine. That was, again, not the issue. It's the outlook.
Yeah, you got to love PayPal long term. I mean, just boils down to really if you're an individual investor, whether or not you buy into the narrative that tech is no longer going to be the front and center sector moving forward. I saw JP Morgan came out with this thing saying that they're putting tech to neutral for the first time in 2 years, and they think cyclicals are going to kind of be where you want to put your money. And it almost seems too obvious right now where that's just what everybody's saying. I'm not buying into that personally. It's tough for me to imagine tech not continuing to dominate in years to come just with where the world's heading. I know it's super overvalued, but I'm definitely not necessarily positioned for some major shift outside of tech. My portfolio is pretty weighted to tech, and maybe I'm going to feel the pain on that for years to come. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's short term, but it could last for a while. And the moves in the other names can easily last for a while also. So it's a shift of money going into the non-tech names, and that's what's going on right now. I mean, you could see it in certain names, especially the banks and the oils right now are acting really well. I mean, Goldman Sachs is having an easy day. JP Morgan. Let's see the oils here.
Yeah, no, I think BP even got an upgrade this morning, which.
Yeah, well, now you'll see everybody come on board. It's like one name after another, right? It's like building blocks. First, there's not a buy recommendation out there. Everyone say get out, and then you ran out of people to say get out, so now they'll start saying get in.
Yeah, so you buy into that, and you like oil and banks right now, or you think this is?
I think they're an easy place to be right now because they've been beaten up, so they're going to do well, at least for a while, until tech comes back, and the industrials, anything non-tech is moving, right?
Yeah, no, definitely, and tech. Some of the names are moving. I think. DraftKings has their earnings this week, and they're starting to, it seems like they're starting to stabilize a little bit. Them and Penn are both acting well this morning. And
beat up stocks are probably a good place to look. It's a little early. Usually they don't do that till the last couple of weeks in December. But because of the tax consequences that could be coming up with Biden, they're starting earlier.
Yep, that makes sense. And I'm still not really ruling out the possibility of just another big flush out. I feel like the last couple of weeks, the market was obviously awful and shaved off over 2,000 points, but there was never that like, oh man, this is just, I can't even watch this moment. It almost got there, but it never got there.
Right.
I'm not saying it needs to get there, but it usually does get there when the market sells off like that. So it wouldn't shock me if we get one more wave of a nasty sell-off that takes us to lows that were lower than what we saw last week. So
the one place that'll probably see a lot of selling no matter who wins is this whole electric car and solar, because so many people piled in on the assumption Biden was going to win. So then I think you'll see a sell-off before it takes off, no matter what, because it'll take so long before anything gets put into legislation to help those.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, Plug was about 15% yesterday. It's up another 5.5% today. Mike,
I got in that again last week. I'm up big on Plug.
That's awesome. Good job there. Yeah, that. So, Mike, are you just going to hold that at this point? Because, Mike, if you believe it, are you going to just hold that? Because if you think Trump's going to win, I could see that stock selling off hard just off of the idea.
It won't matter who wins. They're in the right category for where the world's heading. Like Dad brought up yesterday, companies are set up regardless of, Trump or Biden for the future.
Yeah.
And Plug is really, they're set up with the behemoths. Like they power Amazon, Kroger, I think Walmart they work with now. They can't really be, all that could happen is them getting acquired. There's no way to really compete with Plug with what they've built. So I love that company.
Well, there's a few companies that do what they do.
No, but they're the market leader, and no one's ever heard of any of these other companies. So
Yeah, and listen, I'm annoyed I didn't jump on them last week when they were 15 to 20% lower than they are now, because it's definitely a hot stock, and I could see it continuing. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I do think, though, if Trump wins, Plug's going to sell off hard short term, and then that'll give me another chance to get in. But I don't know if Trump's going to win. I'm just saying.
one of our viewers is saying they heard Johnson and Johnson has a vaccine ready. Is that? I haven't heard anything about that.
Sounds like that viewer might be long Johnson and Johnson. No, I haven't heard it either.
But that would obviously be great news if that's the case.
Remember that Trump said that there would be a vaccine by election day. So there could be that a couple are ready, and for political reasons are not saying anything till after.
Wouldn't shock me at all if they were withholding that.
I mean, J&J's up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day,
as I've said before, the big companies that find the vaccines are not going to make that much in profits off of a vaccine. It's good publicity for them, but when it comes to the bottom line, a company like J&J, I don't know how much it's going to move the needle. It's
I also don't.
to do well.
Yeah. I also don't think the market necessarily is looking at a vaccine the same way that it was a few months ago, where I think it's kind of digested what it really means and what percentage of people would take it. And it's not like a vaccine comes out and like, boom, pandemic's over. And I think, you'll probably be able to get a trade in certain names that benefit from it. But I don't really see, once a vaccine's out, it having the same level of impact that it was months ago when they were like at least making progress on it. Because like at that point, we were just in this phase where we just needed some level of hope. It seemed like the world was basically ending. So hearing that there were things that were, coming out that were good were great for the market. But now the market, I think, is looking way ahead. That's at least my opinion. I don't think anything with the pandemic as far as vaccines or treatments. Well, treatments actually is what I think is the big mover right now. Like they got to get the Regeneron cocktail out and they got to get treatments widespread so people feel confident that if they get sick, there's at least a treatment, because I don't think people want to take a vaccine.
Yeah, but I actually think the government will pay people to take the vaccine to get up to that 50, 60%, $500, $1,000, and people will be lining up. They don't care if it kills them.
That's just scary. The thought of the government paying people to do things.
No, I think
that's not at all what I'm all about. If that's where we're heading, I'm going to Mexico.
But people will take it for money.
Yeah, that's scary. That's not democracy.
Like I get what Mike's saying. Like when you think about just how, like what kind of gates that opens up for the future, and the other things that you're going to kind of be put in a position where you'll get helped out if you do things. What'd you say?
They could present it as a part of the stimulus bill to get the economy going. How they just gave people a check for $1,200. They could put on that check. You want to get that $1,200, then you have to get the vaccine.
Oh man!
I think they're going to do that because they need to get to the 50% immunity. And the first people that are going to get this drug are the people at risk after the healthcare workers. And very slowly, but pretty quickly, you'll see more and more people going out and doing things, because once the older people get the vaccine, they're going to be doing whatever.
Yeah, that's the first layer of that onion of basic.
Yeah, and they have the most money to spend. So that's good for the economy to get it going. And the young people don't care if they get the vaccine or not, because they don't think it matters if they get sick or not. But if they pay them, they'll get it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting call there, Dad. No doubt about it. Dad, what did you guys used to do during election day when you worked at Wall Street?
It was my favorite day of the year. I would get one of those big yellow pads, and I'd write all 50 states down in alphabetical order. And I'd be up all night, and I would keep track the vote, the popular vote as it came in. Because,
Yeah, no, you used to do that as a kid, right?
yeah.
Yeah, but when you worked on Wall Street, what was election day like? Was there something different that you guys would do to approach it, or was it just another day in the
Oh
office?
no, I mean, obviously it wasn't as crazy as it is today, and most of the time you had a pretty good idea who was going to win. The polls were extremely accurate. Nobody thought the polls were that wrong, and so you had a pretty good indication who was winning. It was
Gotcha.
pretty rare. You'd have an occasional Senate race that went the other way that they thought it would go, or but there wouldn't be that much different. I actually, over the years, I hated when the polls came up because they used to project and figure out who was going to win like 2 seconds after the polls closed, sometimes before they closed. Then they made a law that said they could not project a state to anybody until the polls were closed. So
That's crazy.
yeah, they had, because then people would stop voting once like in California, if they projected someone won at 7 o'clock and the polls are still open for 3 o'clock until 11 o'clock, and nobody goes to vote after that.
Yeah. Do you remember 2000 at all, though, with the not even just with the contested election with Bush and Gore, but the way it played out in the market?
That was the only time that it was crazy, but it wasn't that nuts. I mean, the markets were in a little bit of flux. I think most people had the feeling that Bush was the winner, and it would have been a real upset for it to go the other way at that point.
Wasn't that the year, though, that there was basically the dot-com crash? Didn't that come like a few months after the contested election, or did that not really have anything to do with?
No, that actually came before the election, because that would have been 1999 into 2000, right? Isn't that when the dot-com?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought it was in 2000 after the election when it really.
No, it was a few months before that.
Okay.
I think all the excitement in the tech was leading up to the year 2000, which was the year before. And then everything was too high right after that. And then things started coming down. I'd have to look at a chart, but it wasn't like this. There's not any like insanity going on. That might have been the start of what we're seeing now, the Gore Bush stuff that went on, where it got pretty vicious.
Well, there's going to be a lot of people needing a new profession after today. That's for sure.
So, what do you mean?
Nate Silver, 538 polls. I mean, anyone that has a polling company.
Yeah, but they do other stuff during the year, but they are always around.
Yeah, no, they're not going to be around if Trump wins the way they've laid out these polls. I can guarantee you they lose all credibility.
Well, Nate Silver said it's possible for Trump to win. He's not saying it's impossible.
No, it's more of the whole notion of someone having a trusted source to go to for polls, not just elections. Like Nate Silver is known as the guy with stats. He's no longer that guy if Trump wins, any way you spin it. Because then it's like, wait a minute, this is 2 times running where this guy had no chance and then pulled it off. How do you trust a guy like that with polls?
Yeah, except no one's saying he has no chance now. I mean, the odds are not that crazy.
Let's talk a few stocks here in the last 10 minutes. So just seeing Wayfair, they had a great quarter. Their stock's up 7% pre-market right now. I wonder if that'll kind of give a lift to some of these e-commerce names. Like I see Etsy's, obviously Wayfair is that e-commerce website for furniture and just household items. So, I see Etsy's getting a little look this morning. Amazon, not much. That just kind of sucks. Chewy a little. So that'll be interesting to see. We already talked about Alibaba. NEO has been on fire. I mean, Dad, I know you watch that stock a lot. They have gone in like a straight line from really 17 to 33 in the last month. It's insane, actually. And I know you were talking about the electric vehicle makers a little bit. I mean, you think these are going to sell off either way? Because I was going to bring up Li Auto as the next one here.
Yeah, I kind of do. I think that, it's going to have to, it may be one of these now what after, let's say Biden wins. So then you got to wait for all kinds of credits to show up and the deals. I don't know. I think they've run up in anticipation. Feels like a good time to sell them.
And yeah, I saw Twitter right when the market closed yesterday announced a buyback program and said Jack Dorsey's going to remain the CEO, and that kind of saved that stock from the downfall it was having. I don't really know what's that great about that news, but
Nothing.
Twitter's back above 40. And I mean, this stock has gotten beaten hard in the last few days from the earnings miss. So, I think Twitter long term is a great buy because they still could figure out a lot of ways to monetize the platform. I know we talked about it a bunch.
We've heard that for years. I'm not a Twitter believer at all anymore.
I'm not a holder.
Dorsey's focused on Bitcoin and Square. He couldn't care less about Twitter is the reality. He hates even dealing with the politics, the way that guy thinks. Like, he really has zero interest in even dealing with Twitter. He's doing it for legal purposes.
And then, yeah, I mean, you're probably right. And then AMC, the movie company, they're looking like they're up pre-market a pretty decent amount. This has been a fun stock to follow just because they've been affected so much by the pandemic. Their stock's trading at 238 right now. They're up 10%. This could be one of those short squeeze days where it's up huge, but they lost a ton of money on the quarter. And let's see here.
Vuzi, what's going on with them?
Well, Vuzi got caught up in the market dropping 2,000 points, so they'll come to those names again. Right now, it's caught up in Nasdaq just not being strong, but their earnings are coming out in a week. So at this point, I wouldn't buy more. I'd wait to see what they have to say.
Yeah. Boozy is stock that I own a little bit of, and I'm down.
Spotify has gotten really.
Yeah, what is the deal there?
I mean, look, you can put all these tech stocks in the same category. They're all just getting demolished.
Great buying opportunity for Spotify, the way that's fallen. I wish I owned even more, but, it's a phenomenal.
Well, actually, up until yesterday, you wouldn't want to say that.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think long term, they're an absolute grand slam any way you spin it. Like, podcasting hasn't even really scratched the surface yet with the way they're going to be able to make money on it. So I'm a huge fan of theirs.
I'm still liking these like Spirit Airlines. It just feels like there's some solid buying there.
I bought some last week.
Good.
I also bought Nike last week on the Kramer add-on. And CVS, I'm very pumped with. That's gone on a nice little run for me since I got in under 56. I think they're going to start going to the moon. It's like they're at one of these under the radar. It reminds me of Beyond Meat in a way, except CVS's whole thing, they're going to be approached as a much different sector heading forward with healthcare and delivery. I think every time I'm in CVS, I somehow spend like $80 on I don't even know what. I'm just a huge fan of what they have going on, front and back.
Maybe no matter what you buy, they just charge $80.
That's why I own the stock.
The $80 store.
Dexcom's another one. Like, really, all these big tech names that have had such great years. If you think their run is not over, they're all great buys. You could look at any of them, really.
Fastly is, I'm in that now. That's definitely at these levels a great purchase.
You would think our company pays Fastly. I was talking to Anthony about them a little just to try and get a better handle on their company. And the one thing I will say is, according to Anthony, and I'm like, I don't know if you listened to the Jim Cramer interview, but because he interviewed the CEO of Fastly, and one of the questions Cramer asked him was, it seems like a lot of the chit chatter on the street is you could put one of these SPAC companies together, put like two bill together, and do exactly what you guys do. And you could almost tell in the interview, Cramer was not big on Fastly. Like, I've never seen him not hand these guys a silver plate during his interviews. And Anthony was telling me, Fastly has a lot of competition. Amazon uses them or does the same thing. Google does the same thing. And he's like, we use Fastly because it was essentially built into our tech when we took it over. But then he did say, but I would probably use Fastly if it was up to me either way, because they're better for, businesses like us. So I don't really know. All I know is the stock has come down a ton and I own it. So
Yeah, well, that's
interesting to talk to Anthony on these tech stocks because he's got a good pulse for what they're really doing. Like companies like Twilio and Fastly, these are all companies that our company has been using for years. I mean, Twilio, I'm still kicking myself because when that stock was trading at 40 and we saw like, oh, we're paying this company $1,000 a month so our customers can get notified when their food's showing up. Like we should have been like, oh, this is the future. This company, you know what I mean?
I owned that at 40. That's what's frustrating.
Yeah,
I had that until it was at like 70, and then I'm like, oh, that's enough.
And now
I'm in Fiverr. I sold way too early.
Yeah, it's always hard to hold on to the winners too long, long enough. That's the hardest thing to do. It's almost
The key is usually not selling them. That's
what
I'm learning. You just hold it. A winner is a winner. You don't pitch.
Exactly, Mike. The winners really do seem
I'm done doing that. Even with I'm looking at my realized gains this year in my head, I'm like, what was I even doing selling any of these stocks? I should have just held them.
Yeah, it's easy though to look back and make better trades.
That's definitely true. And I mean, look, at the end of the day, Mike, you selling positions when you did put you in a position to do buying over the last few days. And now you own companies like Save and Plug at lower levels because you did get out of position.
Well, that's because of the beyond position I played with. It freed up a lot of cash on that aggressive put option. So,
but that aggressive put option is the same as you owning that amount as far as your
that means you're more into margin.
Yeah, that
I'm not in margin at all, actually.
Nice.
Well, that's for another conversation. But
I should be tapped out in margin. That's what you have to do if you want to get real paid.
Yeah, but on a day like today, it's, I feel like the market can go up or down 2,000 points in the next 24 hours and it wouldn't.
I mean, we could be down a shit ton if this Pennsylvania thing turns into a shit show with these laws with the counties. If that ends up being, that's a big state. So if we end up hearing Pennsylvania, a lot of the 7 of the counties legally aren't even going to be starting counting until late tonight or tomorrow. The whole thing's ridiculous. The way the laws are. That's why you have Trump lawyering up and getting ready to go ham right after.
But I did hear this guy on CNBC this morning, and they were asking him about the whole Trump lawyering up thing. And he was like, look, everyone's making such a big deal about that. That's what every
candidate does. I'm just saying Pennsylvania is definitely, that's what I'm worried about a market sell-off is if there's a contested election around that state. We might not hear about it for days.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I know. I think Trump's going to win in a landslide. So
I also read that, 4 years ago, people were kind of, I don't want to say saying the same thing, but they were just unsure about how Trump was looking at the whole thing. And apparently he had plans to go golfing in Scotland the day after the election, just assuming he was losing. And from close sources, was so indifferent about it. Was just ready to get back.
He won't even go back to Washington if he loses. He'll never even go back there. He'll stay in Mar-a-Lago and just hang out. I wouldn't even touch going back to that place. The way they
legal problems that are coming up from the state of New York, he may decide to go see his friend in North Korea.
Yeah, he might flee the country.
There is nothing happening to Trump. Anyone that thinks that guy's gonna this far in life gonna figure out how to end up in jail is a joke. When you're able to win for this long, you continue to win.
I don't know what's actually true and what's not. All I know is there are a lot of people out there that are saying that Trump is in a ton of legal trouble, and if he doesn't win, he's gonna be behind bars. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, people that hate Trump, of course.
I'm just saying that's out there. Even when you listen to what market people are saying, that's something that they're factoring in to the whole contested election thing. I think that's why people think this whole contested election is so in the cards.
Well, what he could do is make a behind the doors deal to not contest the election for no prosecution.
He's not getting prosecuted. Come on. Like, there's zero chance that's going to ever happen.
Well, that's it, everyone. Go out, do your part, vote, whether it's for Biden or Trump. It doesn't really matter.
Or
And
don't vote. If you don't have conviction, don't just vote because of hearsay. That's what drives me nuts more than anything. People voting because they feel like they have to because of other people. Ridiculous.
And this market should be a fun one today. It's probably going to go up and down and up and down and all around. So Rolland Market Mashup, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and yeah.